I was holding the piece of paper my 10-year-old son, Toby, had just innocently handed me. My entire body was vibrating with a mixture of adrenaline and pure, unadulterated horror. Across the expansive quartz kitchen island of our 6-bedroom suburban home, my husband, Richard, was pouring a glass of aged scotch. The ice clinked sharply in the silence of the house. He was mid-rant, complaining about the eyesore on the corner of our street, the homeless man Toby had just befriended. Richard was the picture of righteous, upper-middle-class indignation, his expensive watch glinting under the recessed lighting. He had no idea what I was holding below the countertop edge. He had no idea that the foundation of the life we'd built over 10 years was about to vaporize in the next 60 seconds. To understand why that piece of paper shattered me, you have to understand the lie I was living. Richard and I were the couple of our gated community just outside of Seattle. He was a partner at a venture capital firm, charismatic, ruthless in business, but charming at dinner parties. I was the architect-turned-stay-at-home mom who curated a flawless existence. We had the Teslas, the right friends, and the right zip code. But it was hollow. Richard was subtly controlling. He handled all finances because numbers bored me. He was fiercely secretive about his past, claiming he was an orphan with no family. I believed him because it was easier than questioning the man who provided this luxurious cage. Then, about 3 months ago, Arthur appeared on the corner. He was a quiet man, weathered by years on the street, usually sitting near the stop sign with a meager shopping cart. Most neighbors just ignored him. Richard, however, actively despised him. It was a visceral reaction. He'd call the non-emergency police line weekly to report loitering. He'd veer his car aggressively close to the curb if Arthur was standing too near the road. Richard claimed he was protecting property values, but his rage seemed excessive for a man who never panhandled and mostly kept to himself. I just saw a human being down on his luck. Richard saw a stain on his perfect world. Only my son, Toby, saw Arthur clearly. Children haven't learned to filter their empathy through societal cynicism yet. Toby started sneaking granola bars out of the pantry for him. Then, today, on his 10th birthday, he did something incredible. He took the crisp $100 bill his grandmother had sent him and ran outside. I watched from the window as Toby tentatively approached Arthur and handed him the cash. Arthur seemed to refuse at first, shaking his head, but Toby insisted. When Toby ran back inside, he was beaming. He looked so hungry, Mom. He needed it more than I need a new video game. My heart swelled. Richard, however, was furious when he found out. 5 minutes after Richard started his rant about irresponsible parenting and declaring he was going outside to demand the money back, Toby came downstairs again. He was holding something strange. Mom, Toby said, confused. Mr. Arthur was crying. He said to give this to you. He said it's like a receipt for the $100 so Dad wouldn't be mad at me, but it smells funny. It didn't smell like a receipt. It smelled of mildew and old wood smoke. It was a letter in a tattered envelope. The postmark was dated 15 years ago. The return address wasn't a shelter. It was the North Branch Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison. Richard was grabbing his keys, ready to go harass a man who owned nothing. I'm getting that cash back on principle, he sneered. I looked down at the letter Toby had given me. The handwriting was jagged, desperate, written with a pencil stub. The first line made the room spin. My dearest Richie, it began, I'll take the fall. Like we agreed. But you swore you'd take care of Mom. You promised. I looked up at my husband. The man on the corner wasn't a stranger. The man Richard had spent months tormenting was his brother. Who is Evelyn, Richard? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He froze. The color drained from his face faster than I'd ever seen. Evelyn was the name of the mother he claimed had died 20 years ago in a car crash. I unfolded the brittle paper further. It was a plea from Arthur, Richard's older brother, the sibling who didn't exist. The letter detailed a scheme gone wrong years ago at their father's accounting firm. Arthur had agreed to take the full blame and go to prison to save Richie's bright future on one condition, that Richard use his freedom to care for their ailing mother. The realization hit me with physical force. Arthur had spent 15 years in a cage for a crime they likely committed together, believing his sacrifice kept their mother safe. Meanwhile, Richard was here, living in luxury, building a fortune. Where is she? I demanded. Richard mumbled, looking at the floor. She died, 8 years ago, state-run nursing home, I couldn't handle it. He had let their mother die alone in poverty while he bought sports cars. And when Arthur finally got out, broken and destitute, he found the brother who betrayed him and just watched him, until my son showed him an ounce of kindness. I kicked him out that night. He tried to gaslight me, tried to say Arthur was crazy, but the evidence in that 15-year-old letter was irrefutable. The ensuing divorce was brutal. I learned that the boring finances Richard hid were a tangled web of offshore accounts and assets built on the original stolen money that sent his brother to prison. I used the threat of the letter to force a settlement. I got the house, full custody of Toby, and half the liquid assets. The perfect suburban life was over, and I lit the match with a smile. A month later, I tracked Arthur down to a halfway house downtown. He looked cleaner but still deeply weary. When he saw me, he flinched, expecting more cruelty from our family. We went to a diner. I handed him a cashier's check. It was for exactly half of the settlement I received, enough to buy a small condo and never worry about food again. Richard didn't earn this money, I told him as he stared at the check, tears cutting through the grime on his cheeks. You bought it with 15 years of your life. My son gave his birthday money away hopping to buy a stranger a warm meal. Instead, that $100 bought his mother her freedom from a toxic marriage and restored dignity to a man who had lost everything. We live in a smaller house now. I went back to work. Our life isn't Instagram perfect anymore, and thank God for that. We learned that the shinier the surface, the deeper the rot underneath. True wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and know you haven't built your life on someone else's suffering.